good evening, the president of both the chamber, Indo-Arab Chamber, Indo-African Chamber, my colleague committee members, Sumit Sharma, and the speaker of today, Mr. Mihir Shah, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to all of you and a warm welcome on behalf of the chamber. Today's topic is very interesting topic. All these days we have been talking about the market where you have to do business, what are the potential in those areas, and today we have come with a special topic where we are telling you what are the new trends in export import and the guidelines which can protect the interest of both exporter and importer in today's world. As quoted by the chairman of World Economic Forum, I'm impressed by how well Indian companies have moved from a management style rooted in a protected environment to a management style which is exploiting the global competitiveness. India is currently known as one of the most important players in the global economic landscape. So far as the export figures are concerned, in 2021 till May 2020, the total exports from India, merchandise and services stood at US $61.75 billion, while import was estimated at $57.19 billion, according to the data received from the Ministry of Commerce. According to our minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Honorable Minister of Commerce, the government of India is keen to grow, export, and provide more jobs for young, talented, well-educated people, as well as semi-skilled. To share the figure that India's foreign exchange reserve today is 507.64 billion in the week up to June 12, 2020, according to the data received from the RBI. Now, something about today's topic, what is Incoterms? To put simply, Incoterms rules 2020 is the selling term that the buyer and seller of goods both agree during international transaction. These rules are accepted by governments and legal authorities around the world. Understanding Incoterm is a vital part of international trade because they clearly state which tasks, cost, and risk are associated with the buyer and seller. The International Chamber of Commerce have published the new Incoterms Rules 2020, which has come into effect from January 2020. Incoterms indeed plays a vital role in the world of global trade, but it's imperative that buyers and sellers clearly understand how they work their own obligations along the supply chain. Today's speaker is Mr. Mihir Shah, son of Ajit Shah. Ajit Shah, who has been associated with the chamber since last 20 years or more. Mihir is following the footsteps of his father. He has become an expert consultant, advisor in international trade. He is highly qualified. He did his MBA, his LLB, and I'm proud to inform you that today he is the first Indian in whole of India for acquiring this Incoterms rules certification from ICC, that is International Chamber of Commerce. Before I invite Mihir, I would like to request all our participants that please send your questions and queries during the event so that Mihir can see and he will try and answer those during his presentation. For some reason, we have ample time, but in case if we could not, we will share you the end of the session, we'll share you the email ID, you can send it to us and we can. And those who would like to interact with Mihir after the session also kindly approach to the office of chamber. We'll provide you their contact details and you can approach to them. Now, apart from that, I would like to mention here that we are soon going to come out with a virtual RBSM, that is reverse buyer seller meet in month of September. We have already shown you which is the market you have to do the marketing. We are now today going to show you about the Incoterms, that is the new rule which you have to apply into your routine international trade. And the third step will be we are giving you an online platform B2B meeting, which we plan to start on 23rd September onwards, where you can meet the Arab and African counterpart and you can use this platform for promotion of your business. I would also like to appeal to the members, those who have not renewed their membership are requested to contact the ISSCI team and renew the same quickly, enabling us to serve you better. And now I welcome on behalf of the chamber Mr. Mihir Shah and request him to give his presentation on Incoterms. So Mihir, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Very good afternoon and very good evening to each and everyone. Sunanda ma'am, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Uh, and it is not, I would say it's the best thing to happen is because not only we are talking from the market, which as a chamber you've already done, the topic which I am doing today is on Incoterms. So that coincides and it complements to what all your efforts have been in the past. Without any further delay, let me dive into the presentation. And I move further, we will discuss each of the nuances of the Incoterms. As Madam rightly mentioned, if you have any questions, please leave it on your question and answer session. And I will try and incorporate them during the presentation or at the end of it. So let me just quickly share the presentation screen with you. Okay, I believe the screen has been visible to everyone.
Yeah.
Great. So, friends, we are talking about Incoterms and Incoterm rules. Please understand, this is obviously a creation by International Chamber of Commerce. So, as you will see, that Incoterms 2020 is a product or it's a item or it's a rules which have been designed by International Chamber of Commerce. We always know this as Incoterm rules, but typically, technically, what is Incoterms? Knowingly or unknowingly, if you are into exports or if you are into imports, you would have always seen that in your invoice, in your documentation, you have a column called terms of delivery. In fact, the column actually states in the format terms of delivery and terms of payment. They go to hand in together. So Incoterms is nothing but terms of delivery. How are you going to sell? So most of the times you decide the rate. When you are exporting, you decide whether it is going to be $5, $20, $50, $500. But the question which is to be understood and the dispute which arises in most of the cases is what is included in this $5. Please understand, not how you will get $5. How you will get $5 is terms of payment. What you will get or what you are answering through Incoterms or terms of delivery is what is included in this $5. So Incoterms comprises of certain rules and obligations and details, which we are going to look into the details of it. So please understand, whenever we talk about terms of delivery are nothing but Incoterms. Or terms of delivery can be used, or we can put terms of delivery rather than defining terms of delivery in detail. You can certainly not use Incoterms and do a detailed terms of delivery, but in that case, maybe you and your buyer both have to agree. But Incoterms is a ready-made solution to your terms of delivery, which both you as a seller and your buyer in the foreign country both understand and agree once you utilize those terms. Before I go further, I surely need to mention this, that the Incoterm rules, the Incoterms are logos and all the material is copyright product of ICC. So whenever you're using it, make sure that you refer to their copyright rules at their website iccwbo.org. As a background, we discussed that ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, created these Incoterm rules. Earlier, when ICC was not formulated, it was actually the 5 people who started. They were called Merchants of Peace way back after World War I, and they formed this chamber to assist the international businesses. Today, that 5 people chamber has become such a huge organization which has got members across 120 countries. In fact, it is now also got a status with the United Nations, and it has about 13 ICC commission offices. There's an International Chamber of Commerce, that is ICC office or commission office in Delhi in India as well, which takes care of the India and the Asia region. So it is almost that regularly most of the United Nations members and most of the world follow the rules and regulations created by ICC. Not only Incoterms, UCP 600, which is the most common document which internationally we use for letter of credit, is also created by ICC. Talking about Incoterm rules, we created, or the ICC started creating it right from 1936. There was a sequence of updates which used to happen, maybe not a regular basis, but at least for years which I can remember, they have a methodology of updating it in every 10 years. So we had Incoterms 2000. I remember after that Incoterms 2010, which was effective from 1st of January 2011. And now we have Incoterms 2020. The good part of 2020 rules which have been taken care in this launch is, though effectiveness of that rule is from 1st of January 2020, the rules were launched much earlier. In fact, they were launched on 10th of September 2019. So they gave us, everybody, time to recalibrate, understand, and most importantly, rework on your systems, your softwares, your processes, so that the new rules can be incorporated. Let me clarify one important aspect in Incoterm rules is there are no rules which are closed or not available. They are old rules, but they are still valid rules. The only understanding you'll have to remember is if you are using any of the older rules, meaning if you are still using Incoterms 2010, or you want to still use an Incoterm 2000, then your contract or the mention should be of Incoterms 2010 or 2000 in your contract, so that it is agreed and it is understood that you are referring to an older version. If you just mention Incoterms, it will be obviously considered as the latest version, but you're free to use any of the older version. But as we would all understand, nobody wants to use an old phone or an old software, right? We all want to get upgraded into a latest technology. 2020 encompasses the latest requirement in the international business or in the business of goods and sale of goods. So issues related to that will be automatically addressed through the 2020 version. The learnings and the lessons of 2010 have also been incorporated. So obviously it makes more sense to use the latest version. But however, it doesn't mean that 2010 or any of the earlier versions are no more legally valid. They are completely valid. In fact, I know a lot of you would say we have large contracts spreading about multiple years. Maybe you had an Incoterm, you had a contract which was signed last year. So it was under Incoterms 2010 and it's a 2 years contract. It will still continue. Fair enough. It's still valid. Don't worry. You need not change it to 2020. If you and the buyer agree to change, it's fair. But if you don't agree, it is okay. But for new contracts, prefer Incoterms 2020 because it gives you further clarity. What do we understand by the word Incoterm, or what does the rule Incoterms actually talk about? Sunanda madam actually mentioned about it. I would give you a very simple and a straight definition from the book. Incoterm rules explained by a 3-letter trade terms reflecting business to business practice in contracts of sale of goods. The Incoterm rules describes mainly the task, cost, and the risk involved between delivery of goods from the seller to the buyer. I actually wanted to read it verbatim just for you to understand it. Now let me understand and give you the nuances of it. First and foremost, Incoterm rules can be used only for a business to business practice. So all those who are probably doing or wanting to do a business to consumer B2C transaction, Incoterm rule is not meant for that. Second, Incoterm rules is only used for a sale of goods. So what Mr. Sumit Sharma and what his team or what probably the service vendors are providing, or your clearing forwarding agent, or for that matter myself who are into services, Incoterm rules cannot happen. I cannot offer service to the chamber saying, okay, I will do a seminar on a FOB term. No. Or I will do an X-Works. No, not possible. Because it is sale of service and not sale of goods. So Incoterm is only meant for sale of goods. But it is meant for sale of goods. It is meant for business to business. It has no boundaries. Directly or indirectly, we actually can use, and we do use Incoterm rules, but not literally, in our domestic business also. In fact, you can use it literally. You can actually use it. Many world transactions, many transactions in many of the leading countries. I mean, think about Africa, where most of the landlocked neighbors will be doing businesses within their countries. Though it's an international business, it is almost like local business. They can use it. Even within the cities, even within the countries, within the territorial jurisdiction, you can use Incoterm rules at, until you are using it for sale of goods. There is no restriction. In fact, it can be used for domestic as well as international. Another aspect you'll have to understand is that the rules describes three things. It talks about task. Tasks are nothing but obligations. We have two people in the transaction, the seller and the buyer. So who has what task is clearly defined. So that makes it very easy, and it removes ambiguity between the seller and the buyer, who has to do what. The whole effort here is to avoid confusion. The whole effort is to avoid disputes. Assumption is a very big problem in the business. I assumed you will do it. Our understanding was that it is always done by the seller or it is always done by the buyer. That understanding, assumption will go away, and it will be clearly defined that it is whose task. Who bears what cost? So it is clearly identified what are the costs and who bears it. When I say cost, please do not get confused with money. We are not talking about who will, when it will be paid and how it will be paid. We are talking about the cost, who will incur. And the most important aspect of the Incoterm is risk. Many times we associate risk with the physical possession of the goods. That's incorrect. The risk gets transferred at various points, and it may not necessarily be on physical possession. So you'll have to understand where does the risk get transferred from the seller to the buyer, because seller is ideally originally the holder of the goods, and from seller the goods are basically transferred to the buyer. So when, at what point, and that point is very crucial. And in fact, you will realize that in the Incoterms, it is that small points which is actually making the difference. So we basically going to talk about the task, cost, and the risks involved in each of the Incoterm rules when the goods are delivered from the seller to the buyer. When Incoterms 2020 came into existence, one of a very interesting discussion and interesting detail were part of these rules, and which I wish to share with every one of you, which titles as what Incoterm rules are not. Please understand this. Whatever henceforth I will say for about few minutes, this is not Incoterms, or this is not part of Incoterms. Now this is very important. This is as if you are creating a statue from a rock. You remove the unwanted thing so you get the best out of it. When you know that this is not what is part of Incoterms, you know what is left with Incoterms. One of a very basic understanding is Incoterm rules are not in themselves any contract or a substitute of a contract. Please understand, just because you have a transaction and there's an Incoterm rule, it doesn't mean that you have a contract. In fact, it is the other way around, that you have to use the Incoterm rule in a contract. You should have a sale contract or a purchase contract. Now that could be in form of a purchase order, your pro forma invoice, any document, or a legal contract. Methodology can be anything. But the rules are on the contract and not the other way around. Incoterm rules do not deal with following matters. So another, please remember, Incoterm is not everything. वो सर्वस्व नहीं है. It is just part of one of the business aspect. There is things beyond Incoterm. So don't understand, oh, I have done a Incoterm transaction, I have done an FOB or a CIF, that means everything is sorted. No, there could be so many other challenges. Whether there is a contract of sale at all, so it doesn't deal with where there is no contract of sale. It doesn't deal with the specification of the goods sold, whether the pipe should be 10 mm in diameter, whether the color of the shirt should be blue, whether it should be this thickness, whether it should be this specification, whether it has to be that much molded, or the size or the color. The specification of the goods are not part of or not dealt with in Incoterm rules. Those are dealt in the contract. The time, place, method, and currency of the payment of the price. This is not dealt with in Incoterms. Remember, do not get confused with the word cost. Cost is how much it is incurred. This is what is payment. This is separately called as terms of payment. One of the very interesting thing which is not covered in Incoterm rules, and it has to be certainly looked at in a different manner is called the remedies which are sought in case of a breach of contract. Just because you have a contract of sale, it does not, or you have an incoterm rule, it doesn't mean that if you do not, so you have rules, and if you do not follow the rule, remember you have to have a punishment. Not following a rule does not give you anything. It only proves a fact. If I'm driving a car and I jump the red light signal, I have made a crime. I have done a mistake. But unless that mistake has a corresponding punishment, that is no problem. There's nothing. The fact is that I've made a mistake. I've, done something wrong. Incoterm rule only proves the fact. So your contract should have the remedy which is sorted. Incoterm rule will not have a remedy. Incoterm rule will only say you are not supposed to do this or you are supposed to do this. If you do this, then you have complied by the rule. If you have not done this, you have not complied by the rule. What happens if you do not comply by the rule? Your contract, the breach of the contract should be part of the contract of the sale and not incoterm rule have no role to play in that. Very interesting, and I used to use this, I used to read this and there was a lot of questions most of the time. Does this really happen? I can relate it now with India and with the current situation in COVID where many of the items are prohibited and restricted for exports and imports. Many of the changes happening, suddenly, that incoterm rule has no effect as far as import tariffs, export import prohibitions are concerned. So when you select the incoterm rules, you have to take the effect of who has to bear cost of the import duties, the export duties, and obviously that person will have the effect of it. Incoterm rules doesn't change because, oh, listen, when I decided this, the duty was 10%. Now it is suddenly increased. Sorry. It says as an importer, you were to pay duty. You will have to pay duty whether it is 10 or 100 or it is 0. It doesn't change. So any effect or change of sanctions, import tariffs, export import prohibitions doesn't apply to incoterm rules. Incoterm rules doesn't look into that at all. And finally, incoterm rules doesn't look at the intellectual property rights. So I cannot be held responsible for, probably exporting goods which one of our member is already manufacturing. Maybe it is his brand product. I will take it away. No. So that's not possible. So it is IP related issues which are governed by the customs of the authorities and not by incoterm rules. Finally, one of the most important aspect which you need to understand as incoterm rules, because still people get confused with this, is please note that incoterm rules does not by any way transfer the rights of property, that is goods, title or the ownership of the goods which is sold. Remember, the ownership, the title of the goods are transferred through your transfer of documents, especially the bill of lading and the export documentation. So unless you transfer, the way you have to transfer based on your payment terms, based on your contract, it will get transferred from the seller to the buyer. Incoterm rules doesn't transfer the ownership of the title. It is like if I drive a car of my friend, I am the driver, I am using the car, but I don't become the owner of the car. It is not my car. The ownership doesn't change. So it is very important that incoterm rules, I have the possession, I'm using it, I'm enjoying the benefits of it, but I am not the owner of it. I don't have the title of the goods. In short, incoterms deals with three and only three things: obligations or tasks, costs, and risk between seller and the buyer. The Incoterms 2020 was launched on 10th of September. The change from 2020 to 2010 to 2020 is more in terms of the internal technicalities. One of the very important change which has happened is the sub rules, which are A1 to A10 for the seller and B1 to B10 for the buyer, have got a small change. I mean, have been rearranged, and very importantly rearranged, very importantly added. The general obligations, which is common for all 11 Incoterms, remain at A1, B1. The delivery spot, and I consider that as the most critical in the Incoterm, which was earlier an A4, is now been brought in ahead, and it is right on the top as A2, B2. Where will the delivery take place? And why this delivery A2 is important is because where the delivery take place, As per A3B3, the transfer of risk happens at that point of time. Meaning anything happening after that will go to the buyer, and anything happening before that will be the risk of the seller. So A2 is very important because A3B3 transfer of risk takes place. We earlier had carriage and insurance as the one common rule that has been splitted up into two rules. Delivery of documents have been specified. One of a very interesting addition which has come up as A7B7, clearly defining in terms of export and import documentations, clearances, who will do what, who has to bear what cost. You have the checking, packing, marking in A8B8. Now, at each point, of course, somebody has to do the obligation and somebody has to bear the cost also. But if somebody wants to, as a seller or as a buyer, I want to understand the entire cost structure at one place. You don't have to go to each of the sub rules. You can straight go to A9, B9, where allocation of costs are given again, and it has been summarized to that extent. Simply put, if your buyer says, I want a DDP shipment, you've calculated your DDP shipment costs. Now you want to verify, have I considered everything? Then as a seller, you can go to A9 and understand what all cost becomes part of your costing. So you put A9 in front of you, mark the cost which you have decided. And if all of them have been covered, you are sure that you have covered all the costs. Alternatively, you have given a costing to the buyer as X works. What are the expenses buyer has to do in addition? He has to just look at B9 and he will know, okay, I have to pay the cost of the goods plus these are my expenses which I am supposed to pay. So allocation of cost is A9, B9. And finally, we have A10, B10, which is the notices which has to be given from seller to the buyer or buyer to the seller. Obviously, because they need to collect and take the goods or the delivery, hand over the delivery. It cannot be, as I say, chori chori chupke chupke. It has to be informed within each other. Otherwise, of course, the transaction cannot take appropriately effectively. Talking about what are the Incoterm rules, we have 11 Incoterm, and the good news is all those who have been using Incoterm rules for a long time, the rules of which were there in 2010, the rules in 2020, out of 11 of them, 10 out of 11 remain as it is, the same rules. So there's no change in the name, there's no change in the structure. There could be certain, of course, there are modifications, but the structure or more or less remains the same. The one rule out of that which is changed, there is a change in the nomenclature or the name. In 2010, we had a rule called DAT, delivered at terminal. The DAT rule has now been changed to DPU, which is called as delivered at place unloaded. So DAT has changed to DPU and we still have 11 Incoterm rules. There is no change in the number. In 2000, we had about 15. In 2010, that 15 changed to 11. And in 2020, we still have 11 Incoterm rules. As you can see, there is a two segregation of the Incoterm rules. The 7 Incoterm rules, which you can see in a so-called brown color, are used or can be used for any mode of transport. So whether it is air, road, rail, or sea, you can use any of these 4 Incoterm rules. However, the 4 which you can see in blue are used only for sea or water transport. So FAS, FOB, CFR, and CIF cannot be technically used for rail, road, or air. Yes, it cannot be used for rail, road, or air. And many of you who are already exporting and shipping goods out of India in air are very comfortably, very regularly using FOB and CFR and CIF. But we'll realize, and I'll try and explain you why it is making sense or why it is not technically allowed or usable for air shipments or any other shipments except water transport. Now, when we look into this 11 Incoterms, I could go by any logic, but then we realize that everything is between seller and the buyer. The goods are starting from the seller and it is, delivered to the buyer. So when we talk about seller and the buyer, we try to arrange these Incoterms, starting with giving the minimum risk to the seller and then increasing the risk and the obligations and the cost. We have 3 parameters. So slowly increasing the risk, cost, obligation of the seller. And when you arrange that into an order, you get a fan like this. So the most comfortable Incoterm rule as a seller is Ex Works. But as you can see, it is very far from the buyer. So buyer has to do the maximum obligation. I don't know if buyer will agree or it will not agree, but so be it. Similarly, DDP, delivered duty paid, is the most preferred term by the buyer. So Ex Works is one extreme, DDP is another extreme. But as we say, okay, marriages are always made in center. So generally, the seller and the buyer will agree on something which is either from FOB, CFR, CIF, CPT, and so of the terms. Please understand, we have 11 Incoterms. It is a buffet of 11. You can pick and choose any one. There is no right or no wrong. If you and your seller agree with Ex Works, you may do Ex Works and do whatever is there in the Ex Works. If you agree for a DAP term, you can do DAP term. If you agree for a CFR term, you can do CFR term. It is what you as a seller and buyer agree to each other. There is no right or wrong. Yes, you may be comfortable doing Ex Works. Your buyer will be comfortable in doing DDP. Somebody says, no, I do only FOB transactions. I feel it better. Fair enough. It is your comfort. There are a lot of commercials and a lot of practical and marketing reasons also where you want to do a different Incoterm. Maybe your volumes are so high that maybe you get a better freight deal. You want a CFR transaction. Your buyer is new. He doesn't understand the freight logics. So you want to do a CFR, or maybe for some other reason. Or your buyer says, listen, I'm not going to do anything, but you want to safeguard your buyer's interest. So you say, fine, I'll do a DDP or I'll do a DAP. It is completely neutral choice. There is nothing right or wrong. What is only important that you should be aware of whatever Incoterms you do, what are the nitty-gritties, what are those A1 to A10 and B1 to B10 which you need to follow. And that's precisely what I want to do and discuss with you today and give you an update on. Let's start with the very basic, Ex Works. I'm sure most of you will aware and maybe using this on a very loose term. Ex Works is, okay, seller factory, that is Ex Works. I agree. So Ex Works Incoterms is, as we can see right here, it is closest to the seller and it can be as close as, which is the place is named place of delivery. Where will the Ex Works delivery happen? Most likely 99.9%, which is at the factory of the seller, or if he's a trader, maybe at his warehouse. So the name place of delivery will be that place where the delivery is going to happen. Remember, delivery is critical here, and we're going to discuss as we move further what happens. Let's look at A1B1, the general obligation. The seller must provide goods and commercial invoice. So remember, two things. As a seller, you have an obligation, and mind you, this general obligation is completely copy paste for all 11 Incoterms. So it doesn't matter which Incoterms you use, you have to follow this. So you have to provide goods, commercial invoice. How? What? Remember, we said goods ka specification quality is not part of Incoterms. So how it is controlled? It says the seller must provide goods and commercial invoice which are in conformity with contract of sale, which means again contract of sale chahiye. So if you do not have a contract of sale jiske upar Incoterms hai, it doesn't make sense. So goods and commercial invoice which are in conformity with contract of sale, plus and any other evidence of conformity that may be required in the contract. Which means that if the buyer has mentioned in the contract, I need A, B, C, D documents, I need XYZ certificates, then those will also be part of the contract. There's also be required, and that will be obligation of the seller to provide those. Just for a change, if I switch over to myself and become a buyer, I have to remember that as a buyer, if the seller to give me those documents, I should make sure they are part of the contract, because Incoterm says that if they are part of the contract, then they are to be given. What are the obligations of the buyer? The general obligations of the buyer are to pay the price of the goods as provided in the contract. Remember, the payment terms are different. Whether it is an advance payment or a credit payment or an LC is completely different. But the buyer has to agree and he must pay the price of the goods as per the contract. To take care of the digital age, the online transfer and the online mechanism, Any of these documents could be given either in paper format or electronic format, or if there's a specific agreement. So if there is a specific mention, manually signed invoice, then as the contract says, you will have to give manually signed. But if there is no mention, and if you give a digital copy, it is acceptable, and it will be acceptable, which is general practice. So the first and the most common obligations for everything in all of the Incoterm is the general obligation. Seller has to give goods and commercial invoice. Buyer has to give or agree to pay the price. This is going to be constant for all our 11 Incoterms. Going to the crucial one, delivery. Now this is going to be slightly changing at each point, and so we have to be very focused which rule are we doing and what is the point. Ex Works, the delivery. Just for an example, I'm taking that Ex Works is it at my factory. I don't have a factory, I'm creating a factory. It is at my factory at, let's say, warehouse number 45, Singh Industrial Estate, Navi Mumbai. Warehouse number 45, Singh Industrial Estate, Navi Mumbai. That is my Ex Works name place of delivery. That is where I'm going to put. So in fact, when I'm going to write as my syntax, I'm going to write EXW, and in the bracket I will write warehouse number 45, Singh Industrial Estate, Navi Mumbai, Incoterms 2020. Now where will the delivery happen? The seller must deliver. I must deliver by placing them, meaning keeping it at the disposal of the buyer, meaning from where the buyer can come and collect it. It should not be restricted access. Okay. So by placing them at the disposal of the buyer at the agreed point, if any, at the named place of delivery, not loaded on any collecting vehicle. At named place of delivery. What is my named place of delivery? Warehouse number 45, Singh Industrial Estate, Navi Mumbai. So now I have to place my carton, place my goods at that premise, maybe at the gate, maybe at the factory, maybe at the floor, maybe at the loading bay, from wherever buyer can come and collect it. But crucial aspect which many of you and many of us assume, and I've got ample of times people saying Ex Works में तो सर हमको load करना पड़ता है. The answer is no. Please read it. Not loaded on the any collecting vehicle. So when the buyer sells a collecting vehicle, buyer is going to send a truck, he is going to send a tempo, he is going to send a trailer. Loading on that trailer, though it is in your factory, is not obligation of the seller. It is the obligation of the buyer. Your obligation is to deliver the goods by just placing it. Where? Not on the truck. By placing it at the named place. And the named place in this case is my warehouse number 45 at Singh Industrial Estate, Navi Mumbai. What is the buyer's obligation? Buyer obligation is to take the delivery. He has to take the delivery from the named place of its delivery under A2 and notice under A10. So as per the notice given, which we will discuss, once the notice is given that on this date, today on 30th of July, the delivery was to be taken. So on 30th of July, buyer must come at the named place of delivery and take the goods. What is the crucial and why it is so crucial? The crucial point is the seller bears all risk of loss or damage until the goods are delivered. Buyer bears all risk of loss after or from the time the goods are delivered. Remember, that is the crucial important aspect in the delivery. Any goods damaged, lost, misplaced, anything going wrong after they are delivered, it is buyer's problem. And before it is, then it is seller's problem. So once you have delivered, once you have made sure that it is delivered, anything going wrong will be buyer's responsibility. I'm sure all of you are able to see your chat option on the website, on the Zoom. Let's do a small quick exercise. I have a case study for you. And I just want you to answer whether it is seller or the buyer. Very simple. Consider this Ex Works. We are talking only Ex Works. Do not consider anything else. And whatever we've just discussed. So it's an ex-works transaction, warehouse number 45, Singh Industrial Estate. This is Navi Mumbai, Incoterms 2020 is the transaction. Now I have kept 100 cartons ready for delivery. Today is the delivery date, 30th of July. The goods are ready. The truck comes of my buyer and he starts loading it into the truck. After he has loaded almost 90 cartons, the 91st carton when he loads, because of some arrangement in the, on the truck, 5 cartons fell down. And because of that fall, out of 5, 3 cartons got damaged. Whose risk is this? Seller or the buyer? Whose risk it is? Seller or the buyer? Fantastic. Sir, I would request people, the question which I am asking you, stick to the chat option, not the Q&A option, because otherwise what happens is I will have to do the, legwork of deleting it or removing it. Excellent. Neha ji, seller. Jayesh bhai, seller nahi. Kaise seller? Remember, where does the risk get transferred? The risk gets transferred when I have delivered it. Loading, anything after. Please read please read this. The buyer bears all the risk of loss of damage from the time. Loading into the trailer, loading into the truck is buyer's risk and responsibility. मेरा तो उसके पहले delivery खत्म हो गया. It is buyer's risk and nothing to do with seller. Please understand this. I know it is very difficult to accept. अरे सर seller का premises में है, सब कुछ seller है, buyer मानेगा नहीं. I agree, but trust me, what most of us we do not understand. When we do this, we don't agree. And when you become an importer and your foreign buyer dictates all of these, you agree to it. Then a foreign seller agrees, tells you that this is X works, and you agree for everything. So be very clear what are your rights, what are the do's and don'ts which you are supposed to do as far as X works is concerned. Great. So I'm sure you are clear with this. So this is critical. Where is the risk getting transferred? Let's move on to a little further on the other options. So risk is already transferred. Now, what is the obligation which the seller or the buyer have to do? One of the first option or one of the first obligation which they have to do is arrange for the carriage. What do you mean by carriage? Carriage is the mode of transport, how the goods are going to go. From the point of the delivery is going to be taken to buyer's premises. From the point when the delivery is taken to the buyer's premises. All right. Okay. I get a lot of questions or request for presentation. Friends, end of the session, I will share you a link where you will be able to download this for your reference. Don't worry. Mehul bhai and all others who have been asking for PPT, just hold on to the session. The person who remains till the end gets the benefit. Okay. No, we will share you the link. You'll be able to get download it for your reference. No worries. So carriage is from the point of delivery. What is my delivery? Warehouse number 45. From that place to buyer's warehouse, wherever he wants it, whatever he's going to arrange. Please remember that is called the carriage. That is called the carriage. Here, seller has no obligation of the carriage. Obviously, seller has not to do anything related to carriage. So seller has to just leave it in the factory. Or even if he has to get from anywhere, he has not to do the carriage from his place to the buyer's premises. So carriage is no obligation of that as far as seller is concerned. Buyer. It is up to the buyer. If the buyer has his own vehicle, and remember, we are talking about the Incoterms can also be used in domestic, right? So if the seller has own vehicle or he wants to contract for a carriage, either of these cases, he can do so. So it is up to the buyer. You have nothing to do it. Seller को इसमें interest नहीं है. तुम आपका खुद का गाड़ी बेचो या आप कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्टर का ट्रांसपोर्टर का गाड़ी बेचो, हमको कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है. It has no obligation. Buyer, seller has nothing to confirm. But only thing is, because the buyer needs to know, should I send a 20 feeter, should I send a 40 feeter, should I send another container, should I send this trailer, should I send a forklift? तो उसको details चाहिए to arrange the carriage. So where buyer wants, as the seller must provide the buyer with the information Remember that information or the details, if requires to be done something, that information will be at the buyer's request, buyer's risk, and buyer's cost. I'll explain you completely. If the buyer says, I want the exact weight of the cartons, exact, I want the exact volume. So I can actually do it. I can do 1 carton in my factory and multiply it by 100 carton. He says, no, 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 no. I want you to weigh the entire cargo at one go. He said, then I'll have to go to the weigh bridge. He says, okay, go. That amounts to cost because I have to load the cartons, take it by truck to the weigh bridge, weigh it, bring it back. Now, if that is what the buyer wants compulsorily, because it is buyer's request, the request must come from buyer. The cost will be borne by the buyer. And if anything goes wrong, the risk will also be of the buyer. So for any reason, when the buyer wants something to be done, it will always be at the buyer's request, risk and cost. Okay. So carriage, seller has no obligation. Buyer has the choice either to use his or to anybody else. Insurance. Obviously, insurance is something which is when you feel that it is risk, when you feel that there is a problem, otherwise there is no obligation. In this case, neither the seller nor the buyer are obligatory for any insurance. In fact, Incoterms has a very simple method to remember. If your Incoterms 3 letters, which you use for Incoterms identification, if it has the word I, meaning it has the word I, then it is insurance. If there is no I, no insurance, no obligation. You can do it for your risk. Remember, you can only insure your risk. I can't insure for your risk, or I cannot insure for, let's say, Sumit's risk of driving because I have no insurable interest. But I can insure for my car. I can insure for my product where it will have a loss. So there has to be a loss to you. Only then you can insure. As far as Xworks is concerned, there is no obligation. You have no obligation. As a seller, any which ways your risk is getting terminated when you leave it at the factory. Buyer is going to bring everything. So buyer को लगता है अगर risk है, if he feels there is a risk, he will take it. If he doesn't feel, or he already has an insurance, you have no reason or no question to ask what is he doing about insurance. There is none of your business. It has nothing to do. But if he requires, let's say he wants to insure, and again if he requires you to provide some information, then it is up to you to provide those information. Transport document, the seller has no obligation to provide any documentation. Yes, remember, seller has no documentation. क्या मैंने delivery दिया है? नहीं. In fact, it is other way around. The buyer will provide you the delivery copy. The buyer will provide you a copy which says, yes, I have taken the delivery. I understand as a normal practice, you'll say, sir, but what if he doesn't agree? We to get a signature done. Continue, but that is not compulsory. The obligation is of the buyer to provide the confirmation that the delivery is happening. One of the most important, which is helpful for us, the export and import clearances and details. I'm going to read the buyer first and then seller. So understand that. Buyer, wherever applicable, it is up to the buyer to carry out and pay all export, transit and import clearance formalities such as export, import or transit license, security clearance, that is custom clearance, export, import or transit pre-shipment or any other official document or authorization. Who has to do it? Buyer has to do it. And that's why if you see in the seller, it says wherever applicable, the seller must assist, not do it. So once you have handed over the cargo, the clearance of the export, the clearance of entire thing, if buyer wants your help, he will do it. Otherwise, it's a buyer's problem. Buyer has to do the export clearance in India. Buyer has to do the transit clearance and import clearance, including any duties, taxes, anything. सब कुछ उसको करना है. Now, I have a word of caution for all our exporters. Because we are exporters and because we want to export, it is imperative as far as Indian government and Indian customs is concerned that appropriate documentation is done, which simply means that your shipping bill should be correctly filed in your IEC code. And I'm assuming most of you understand these parameters. Shipping bill, IEC. Please understand, when you deal with Ex Works, it might be possible that the buyer not even will not necessarily export also, and he's got full right to do so. He's into a contract with you for Ex Works. He picks up the cargo and let's say probably delivers it somewhere in the city only. Or he may export it. He may buy from 1, 2, 3, 4 people and then export it on some other name. He's allowed to do so legally. How he does is not your problem. So, in fact, 2020 drafting committee clearly mentions this in their records, that if you deal with international transactions, and especially where documentation for export proof, like in our case shipping bill and payment realization and other aspects of customs is involved, for exports, Ex Works should not be used. For domestic, it is a very good term. It relieves you from a lot of hassles. But for Ex Works, you should not use, because otherwise you are not very sure. Buyer has full right and he has a full liberty not to take any of your help. And which means he may not even file the documents. And I'm sure many of you are aware of that when you export, government has certain incentives. You don't want the buyer to, or you don't want the buyer's representative to be told, I want those incentives, so please mention that. Because copy of that will go to your buyer also. And next order, he will say, listen, when you export, you get 5% incentive. Please give me discount. So all of these is going to be very open and it's going to be challenging. Unless you mention it in the contract and you've been strictly abiding by the contract that the documentation of export clearance, that is shipping bill in India's case, will be from the sellers, will be in name of seller. So for export, it is Ex Works which should be avoided to that effect. Otherwise, please take care. As far as overall picture is concerned, buyer is responsible for all the 3 aspects of export clearance, transit, as well as import clearance. Checking, packing, marking. It is seller's obligation to obviously check the goods. They are as per the contract, count it, make sure the quality is there. Up to what? Up to the delivery as A2. In our case, in Ex Works, where is the delivery? Delivery is at the name place, where? In my factory. So up to delivery, if I've delivered, meaning I handed over 100 cartons to the transporter which came. Now, when the goods reach to the buyer got only 95 cartons. It is not my problem. It is buyer's problem. My obligation is to check, pack, and provide goods correctly as far as delivery point is concerned. So that's again a crucial important delivery point. How should I pack? I should pack which is normally good for a transport. So of course I need to ask the buyer whether it is going to go by road, rail, or air. So accordingly I can pack. There is no specification mentioned, but it is appropriate or as per the contract. So again, as a buyer, I would always insist to make sure that you mention what kind of packaging you require. But if you're a seller, maybe clarify it. Otherwise, whatever is best suitable for the goods for the transport, that packaging has to be done. This is standard for all the 11 Incoterms. This will get repeated. So please be very clear of this. Allocation of costs. Very simple. All of these which we discussed, if you realize this, Sara so buyer ko karna hai. Everything is to be done by the buyer, obviously, because we saw it is Ex Works very close to the seller. Meaning seller has to pay cost only up to the delivery. Meaning until the factory I have to do. I manufacture the goods, pack the goods, everything. So when I am charging Ex Works $100, what I mean to do is $100 includes only up to my factory. Only up to my gate. Loading bhi nahi included hai bhai. You will have to get the loaders, you will have to get the manpower, or you will have to get the forklift, and you will have to load it in your truck. My cost is only up to this. What does buyer have to do? Buyer has to pay the cost of the goods, which is $100. Plus, if I have incurred any expenses for carriage, insurance, or export documentation, that plus duties and taxes which he has to pay at export, import, and transit, and any additional cost if he doesn't take the delivery. So because of he not functioning, because of he not doing it, I have to suffer anything, then all of those expenses will have to be. All of these is now cost of the buyer. So imagine he's not just paying me 100, he's paying 100 plus 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 plus. and that is his landed cost. So I get this upfront straight away at one place in allocation of cost. Finally, I have notices which I have to share. As I said, you will have to do the business openly, informing each other, and not just in the sky or just silently. So seller must give the buyer the notice, meaning if I have to give the delivery on 30th, I have to inform him, listen, the goods are ready on 30th, please come and take the delivery. The buyer, on the other hand, and generally you don't have a date in the contract. You generally would have first week of July, last week of December, mid of January. Now, when you talk about last week, it is anything from 25th to the 31st. Now, when that is the period where the buyer can decide, the buyer must send a notice saying that on this date, I will come and deliver the goods. I will come and pick up the goods. So the notices should carry. Now, when I say notices, obviously I don't mean a legal notice, but I certainly mean a notice now through an email. Don't call up and tell the buyer. Oral communication is to be avoided. It should be a written communication. Don't say WhatsApp is okay. I know a lot of courts have accepted WhatsApp, but not in this case. So the mode of communication will be email, and a notice or a mention or a letter or an email to inform about the delivery has to go from the seller or at the buyer, where the buyer has to decide the date of pickup. So if this is not done, then obviously it amounts to be, so let's assume that the buyer is to be, my delivery is last week of July. Okay. I'm trying to chase my buyer. Listen, 27th ho gaya. He's saying, yeah, I'll let you know. Today is 30th. Now, as per contract, the last week of July is the delivery date. I have ready the goods. I am ready. I'm keeping it. Tomorrow is 31st. Effectively, by default, on 1st of August, the goods will be deemed delivered. If I've kept it at the name place of delivery, that is at my warehouse, as per the contract, then from 1st of August, the goods will be delivered, which means any risk after the delivery will be of the buyer. So be very crucial and be very clear about it, that how things change as far as Incoterms are concerned. All right. I hope I have given you a clear picture as far as XWorks is going. Now, this is a base which we're going to start with, and I've tried to cover all of the Incoterm sub rules so that we know the base at the beginning. And now we're going to probably take a flight. So it's like the first gear which we start. So first gear is generally slow, but to reach the top gear, you have to start with 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So we've done the 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to go really fast and understand the changes which happen. XWorks, if you remember the fan, XWorks is very close to the seller, and now I'm moving little, meaning I'm adding obligations to you as a seller, reducing the cost, reducing the obligation, reducing the burden on the buyer. So from XWorks, we go to the next Incoterm, which is called free carrier, FCA. Again, it says name place of delivery. Now, FCA has two places of delivery, A2, B2. Now remember, the ones which I'm not showing you or not part of it, which is repeat. A1, B1, general obligation, repeat. I don't want to show you for 11 times and bore you. Okay, it wastes your and my both time. It is same. So things which are not coming on the slides, they are repeat. So only the changes is what we're going to look at. Delivery. Here there are two places of delivery. What is the two places of delivery? The delivery is when you hand it over to the carrier or to a nominated person of the buyer at the name place of delivery. So there are two places of delivery. Number one, the delivery can be in your factory, that is the same my warehouse, or it can be by any other place where buyer is nominated. When does the delivery get complete? If the delivery is in my premises, seller's premises, then it will get completed when it is loaded on the means of transport. XWorks और इसमें difference देखिए. XWorks, the goods were here, they were not loaded. Now I have to load it. Go back to my example where I said that the time of loading, 5 cartons fell down and they got down. Because of that, the 3 cartons or 2 cartons got damaged. If it was FCA, whose risk? If it was FCA, if it was FCA, in XWorks you said buyer. If it was FCA, it is seller's risk. Correct. All right. So I'm assuming you are now understanding the differences. Things are changing. I am giving more risk and more obligations to the seller now. Okay. So first is, if it is at the seller's premises, loading becomes the obligation of the seller. But if it is not at this premise, it is somewhere else. Buyer is saying, deliver it to me at my forwarder's warehouse or deliver me to at the port. Possible. Now what the seller has to do is, the delivery will get complete when the goods are at the disposal of that nominated person at the named place, ready for unloading at that place. So imagine my delivery is at a warehouse at Mumbai airport. So the buyer has given me the address of the warehouse that I have to go and deliver. What am I supposed to do as a seller? My obligations increases. It is not just at the factory. Now I will arrange a transport vehicle, not carriage. I will call it as a transport. I will bring a transport. I will load it into the truck. The truck will go from my factory to that warehouse. Once it reaches that warehouse, I will talk to the gentleman. The driver will come. He will unlock the gate of the truck and inform this to unload it. Unloading is not my responsibility. Unloading the goods at the named place is the buyer's responsibility. In this case, the warehouse person's responsibility. So remember, in FCA, there are two spots of delivery, either at the seller's premises or at any other place, which is the named place of delivery. Okay, a very quick question. The delivery was at the airport. The goods were moving from my factory to the airport. Let's say my factory was in Lonavala. The delivery place was Mumbai airport. And on the way, because of the ghat, there was an accident. The cartons got damaged, the goods got damaged. Whose risk? Seller or the buyer? Fantastic. I think all of you are with me, and that's excellent. Great. All of you are understanding it correctly, and that's very helpful for me. Let's move further. Carriage. Who will do the carriage? Remember again, please, carriage is the main mode of transport and not my transport. Carriage is when goods are delivered from the seller delivery point to the name place. Seller has nothing to do. If it is at the seller's premises, the buyer will bring the truck. If it is at the other premises from that place to the buyer's place, it is buyer's responsibility. So carriage will be buyer's responsibility. Nothing or no obligation of the seller. Buyer, of course, he has to contract for the carriage. He has to arrange for a vessel or a truck. So either he contracts or he arranges. It is between the buyer what he does it. Insurance. We have already discussed. No obligation to either party because there is no word I. It is FCA. Either party doesn't matter. Transport document. The seller, because you will hand over the cargo either to the truck driver or to the person nominated, and because let's say it could be a carrier, it could be airline, it could be a ship, it could be a rail to whom the buyer is asked to deliver. In that case, whatever transport document which you get, right, at the seller's cost, you will take it at the seller's cost and give it to the buyer. If it is a transport document, if there are a number of documents, like say there is a BL or there is an airway bill, you will give those documents, number of documents originally issued by the transporter to the buyer. What does the buyer must? Buyer must provide seller appropriate evidence, any evidence. If you are giving it to the truck guy, maybe LR. Maybe if you are giving it to the person at the warehouse, he may give you an acknowledgement or an acknowledgement receipt. Any document which proves that the delivery has been taken. This is, I would say, the most unique part of FCA, and this is going to remain for a long time. Export-import clearance. And as you can see, there are 4 parts. A, B, A, B. And if you really look at it diagonally, it says seller obligation, export clearance, buyer's obligation, import clearance. Seller must assist in import, buyer must assist in export. In short, it is a very clear demarcation. Export clearance, export duty, export license, export procedure has to be done by the seller. Transit, yani in between stopover, or import will be done by the buyer. India, seller will do, foreign, buyer will do. It is almost 50-50, and it is a very important and a good tool for you as an exporter, because then it is your obligation. The export documentation, the procedure is all in your control. Instead of using an Xworks, You can use FCA so that your even it has seller premises, your obligation of loading will increase, your cost of export clearance will increase, but you are assured that your documentation and everything is filed correctly, thereby making no mistake. So export clearance, seller, assistance for other import or transit clearance, import clearance, buyer, transit clearance, buyer. Costs, all costs up to the delivery is of the seller plus duties and taxes related to export clearance. So your clearing forwarding agent charges, your shipping bill filing, your charges at the port will all be, until you finish your export clearance, it will all be related and cost borne by the seller. So now my X works, which was 100, will be added some cost and I will make it, let's say $125. So FCA $125. Buyer, all cost after they are delivered. Please understand this, very important, because the crucial, let's say the delivery is at my factory. So my delivery is already happening on board. So once I've kept the containers on the truck, delivery complete ho gaya, risk transfer ho gaya. But it is my obligation when the cargo reaches the port to complete the custom clearance. So there's a difference, 3 elements: risk, cost, and obligations. So risk is completed at my factory, but obligation is still pending. I have to complete the obligation of export clearance when the goods reach the factory, or I mean reach the port, and complete my export clearance obligation, which is the seller's obligation. All right. So FCA is a step further where you are adding some more obligation to the seller. The next one, FAS, free alongside ship. And as you can see on the top right corner, it's only one icon which is in blue, which is the ship. As the name suggests, it is free alongside ship. अगर ship नहीं है तो ये rule नहीं use हो सकता. And that is why FAS can only be used for waterways, because it says alongside ship. It says name port of shipment, meaning from where the goods are going to be exported. Delivery. The seller must deliver the goods or either buy the goods which are already there, which are alongside the vessel. जो ship के बाजू में रखेंगे तभी ये delivery गिना जाए. So unless there is a ship, unless there is a goods, delivery is not complete. Remember, what are we now moving for? It is not at the factory, it is not at the warehouse, it is not in between the road, it is right at the port alongside the ship. When the goods are next to the ship, the delivery is complete. Now, why it is so crucial that until the delivery is complete, risk is of the seller. After, the risk and the cost is of the buyer. Who will do the carriage? From the delivery to the buyer will do the carriage. Seller has no obligation. Obviously, buyer must contract for the ship, because unless he contracts for the ship will not come. My good will not be taken, and then it will not be alongside the ship. So it is buyer who has to contract for the ship or get the ship, or if he owns the ship. But it is buyer's responsibility for the ship. As far as seller is concerned, he has no obligation. Export import clearance, as I just wanted to mention, I have repeated it here. Export is seller's obligation, import is buyer's obligation. It will remain constant for most of the time. One of the most common Incoterm all of us are using on a day-to-day basis for exports is called FOB, free on board, not foot over bridge. So people who are not into exports, my IT friends who are backing up our systems on the webinar today, ये foot over bridge नहीं है. Free on board. What is free on board? Where does the delivery happen? अरे अभी तक alongside था. Free on board. When the goods are delivered on board of the vessel, it is on board of the vessel. When I'm using the word on the ship, yes, Ajish, on the ship, please note, when I refer to the word on the board of the vessel for all our practical purpose for export and international business is the ship and not air, road or rail. So don't assume it कि अच्छा मैंने ट्रक के ऊपर डाल दिया तो भी on board हो गया. नहीं. And that is why this Incoterm is only used for sea, because it is not on board when it is on board of the vessel, when it is on train. It is not on board when it is on the aircraft. It is not on board the vessel when it is on the rail. It is only and only on board of the vessel when it is on the ship. So when the goods are on board, effectively it means if you talk about FAS and FOB, what is added? Loading charge of loading the goods onto the ship is now part of the seller, and the risk until it is loaded is of the seller. All right. But how will be somebody allow me to load the container on my ship unless somebody contracts for it? So who has to contract for the carriage? Who will contract for the carriage? Who will contract for the ship? Seller or the buyer? Fantastic. Yes. So carriage, again, no obligation of the seller, but buyer has to contract. Agar buyer contract nahi karega, Mehul bhai, no, it is buyer. Seller cannot contract. He has to deliver it. So buyer will nominate the carriage, buyer will nominate the ship, and on that ship, the seller will keep it. So it is buyer's obligation to get the ship nominated. Export-import clearance remains the same. I'm specifically not considered in this presentation about insurance, packing, checking, because this is all repeat. We understand it is up to the delivery. All right. So don't assume that it is not part of it. It is part of it, but this is a summarized version for you so that you understand the gist of it. We are just trying to cover and give you a glimpse of the perspective of what the Incoterm rules are. Export clearance, seller; import clearance, buyer; transit, buyer. All right. Let's go to the next one. And there's a next set of Incoterm rules. These are C Incoterms too. C are, we say be careful with C Incoterm rules. Actually, they are very confusing Incoterm rules. C stands for confusing. So the Incoterm is called cost and freight, CFR. And it says port of destination. If my goods are going from, let's say, Nhava Sheva in India to Dubai, Jebel Ali in Middle East, the name port of destination will be Jebel Ali. So CFR Jebel Ali. Now people confuse, and I'm sure you will also be of an opinion, where does the delivery happen? If I ask you, where does the delivery happen? At the port. Now which port? Okay, let's agree it is at the port. At Nhava Sheva or at Jebel Ali? So Vipin ji says at Buyer's Port. Most of you are saying at Dhananjay Patil ji says Jebel Ali. Vaishali says Jebel Ali. Okay. And this is where I said it is confusing. Why it is confusing? Because you have to think separately. Because at the moment, until now, I made you think laterally. मैंने बोला जहां तक लिखा हुआ है वहां तक का रिस्क है. Obligations हम ज्यादा कर रहे थे. We were doing obligations. My risk was completed when I handed over the cargo, but I had to do custom clearance. Please note, CFR or CF, C Incoterms are confusing because the delivery is at a different point and the cost is up to a different point. The delivery under CFR is by placing them on board at the vessel at the loading bay, meaning at Nhava Sheva, when the goods are loaded, the delivery is complete. When goods are loaded at Nhava Sheva, the delivery is complete. Acha, ye to FOB tha na? Haan. So the delivery is completed at the FOB. What is changing? I am out of my three elements. Risk is at the Nhava Sheva. Only cost has increased. I, the seller, is now contracting for the carriage. Arey, problem ye tha that when buyer used to nominate the vessel, it used to take time. My goods were ready today. The vessel would come after 5 days. So I had to wait. Here, I will select the freight. I will select the shipping line. Tomorrow the vessel will come. I will load it. I will say, ye lo paisa, tum jaake deliver kar do. The only reason it is mentioned port of destination, so that the buyer knows that the freight of the carriage is paid up to Jebel Ali. Okay, boss, listen, your goods have been loaded on this, and until Jebel Ali, the goods have been paid. Abhi Jebel Ali se aage tum kya know? Jebel Ali se aage ka kharcha tumhara. All cost after the freight is yours. So CFR, the delivery happens on board at the Nhava Sheva or the port of loading itself. Jayesh bhai, earlier we were calling it as CNF, but CNF is not the right term. It is now CFR. Yes, it is one and the same. So the terminology was called actually CNF. The reason was the ampersand was not being captured. So people changed it to CNF, but CNF is now changed to CFR as far as Incoterm is concerned. No, there is nothing called a CNF actually. It is one. So it is CFR. It is CFR. So remember, it is actually, if I have to give you, if I have to literally type it out and tell you, it is nothing but FOB plus freight. CFR is nothing but FOB plus freight, which almost becomes CFR. Clear? Which also means that you cannot use this for air, road and rail. Because where is the delivery? The delivery is on board at the vessel. तो मैं airport में CFR कैसे use कर सकता हूँ? For that, I have an alternative which is called the next Incoterm, which is CPT, carriage paid to. And the difference in carriage paid to, because it is all modes of transport, it is not only the carriage can be paid only up to the port, it can be paid up to the destination. So not only up to Jebel Ali port, my buyer says, Tushar, the answer to your question, CPT. So my buyer says, I want it to be delivered. I want you to pay the freight up to my warehouse in Sharjah. So I can use CPT, Sharjah warehouse, Incoterms 2020. What happens? My first question, where does the delivery happen? Remember, delivery under CPT is when I hand it over to the carrier. Who is the carrier? Air, road, rail or sea. When I hand it over to them, my delivery is complete. Please understand. So delivery is happening much before. Imagine karo CPT by air. Now I'm sending goods by air from Bombay airport to Dubai, which is to be finally delivered to Sharjah. When I hand it over to the Emirates airline, CPT, my delivery is complete. So risk is transferred from the seller to the buyer. But who pays for the air freight and then subsequently freight from Dubai airport to Sharjah? Seller, because it is CPT destination. So CPT up to destination I have already paid. I'm only paying the cost of the freight. Remember, the cost of export clearance is any which is on me. Import clearance is on the buyer. But for the freight cost, it is already paid. It is prepaid by me under CPT. All right. Now, if you clearly understood this, the goods have to, when I hand it over to the carrier at airport, at Mumbai airport, I hand it over to the carrier. The carrier, the airline took it from Mumbai to Dubai. It is prepaid up to Sharjah. And when the goods were just landed at the Dubai airport, they were offloaded and they were supposed to do custom clearance and then be handed over to the transporter to deliver it Sharjah. Unprecedented rains happened in Dubai and my cartons got drenched in wet and they were damaged. Whose risk of loss of goods? Seller or the buyer? Excellent. Great. I am very happy. We are all understanding it in the same sense. It is buyer because the risk is already transferred at the Mumbai airport when I hand it over to the Emirates airline. It doesn't matter what happens after that. I have only paid the freight cost. All right. So understand, I am delivering it at a point to the buyer. I'm also contracting for the carriage. So carriage is the only difference of CPT versus CFR. In CFR, it is up to the port because it is vessel. CPT, it is up to the destination. It can be up to the airport also. Buyer may say, okay, you deliver it to the Dubai airport. I can do CPT up to Dubai airport also. But here I have an option up to the destination as well. So CPT can also be up to any destination. Remember, export clearance still remains my obligation. Import clearance remains buyer's obligation. I think now you should be very clear. The confusion should be simpler. It is CIF, cost, insurance and freight. I'm sure everybody understands this now. It is very simple. It is almost answers told to you. It is nothing but CFR plus insurance. Because the word I is there, we have insurance. So where does the delivery happen in CFR? Delivery happens on board at port of loading. So delivery in CIF happens on board at Nhava Sheva at the time of loading. What is included? Carriage is included, plus what more? Insurance is included. Now this is important. I have to now insure the cargo as per Institute Cargo Clause C, the lowest insurance, of the value of 110%. This is seller's compulsory obligation. Remember this. So as a seller, I have to insure the goods. That insurance value should be of the value of goods plus 10%, that is 110% of the value. And I should insure it as per Institute Cargo Clause C. ये मेरा compulsory requirement है. Apart from this, everything remains as it is. Once I transfer the goods on board of the vessel, the risk gets transferred from the seller to the buyer. Seller does export clearance, buyer does import clearance. CIP, this is nothing but CPT plus insurance. Yes, this is multimodal, so it is much higher. It can be for any airport. So now we are talking about air cargo or rail or road. It could be multimodal. My delivery will happen when I hand it over to the carrier. So when I hand the cargo to the carrier, the delivery is complete. The risk is already got transferred from the seller to the buyer. And along with the risk, I'm giving him insurance. So if there's a problem, we can go and claim the insurance. Incoterm 2020 has changed the insurance requirement for CIP. Until Incoterms 2010, insurance in CIP and CIF was same. But because it understood that it is multimodal, it is understood that the insurance can be required which is much higher. So now, if it is CIP, you require to do Institute Cargo Clause A, all risk, rather than just C for CIP. So in CIP, Institute Cargo Clause A will apply. Value 110% of the invoice value will have to be insured for the buyer, because any risk of loss is obviously of the buyer. So you will insure it for the benefit of the buyer, and he will be benefited if there is a problem of anything. So CIP is nothing but CPT plus insurance for any mode of transport. Export clearance, seller. Import clearance, buyer. Okay. Now confusion khatam ho gaya, so let's go to the most important and more further down. Now if you are able to see and think about it, out of 11, you're almost completed 80% of it. And we are now going to the buyer's territory. And when you go to the buyer's territory, just like kabaddi, it is dangerous. You know, somebody can touch and give you, make you out. Gauravji, no, CIP cannot be linked with, sir, anything of this will not be linked to payment terms. Payment terms are completely different. You have payment terms which are separate. CIP has no relation, or none of the Incoterm has a relation of payment terms. So you cannot have a delivery linked to a payment term. So you will have to appropriately decide with your payment terms which is a good Incoterm. All right. So payment term has nothing to do with this. Now, D terms, we call it dangerous terms to an only extent because now it is delivery. Remember, if you started with XWorks, delivery was very close to you. Then we started moving further. We started moving up to the port. We started moving on board. We started moving on board, but paying more cost, like prepaid things. Now we are not delivering just here. We are delivering it outside. We are going in the buyer's country and delivering it in their destination. So deliver at place where it will happen, name place of destination. So my buyer in Sharjah wants, or buyer in Saudi gives me an address and he says DAP, meaning I will deliver there. So my delivery will get complete when my cargo will come in the truck at his factory. Let's take an example. There is a factory number 17 at the street in Sharjah or street in Saudi. And in Saudi, where my goods go to that warehouse number 17, in that truck, which will be there, when the goods reach that truck, ready for unloading, my delivery will happen. My A2 will happen. And once that is the point of delivery, only at that point, the risk will get transferred. Meaning, I carry as a seller all risk up to the delivery, loading from my factory, taking it to the port, from port to bringing it to Saudi, from Saudi, transferring into the truck, and from truck, taking it to that warehouse. ये सब कुछ, all the risk, all the cost is up to the seller. If anything goes wrong, it is seller's risk and liability, nothing to do with the buyer. So it is seller's risk up to the delivery. In this case, it is at the destination. Buyer does not have to do is unloading. So a seller does not have to do is unloading. Buyer has to do unloading. Unloading is buyer's responsibility. Carriage, seller will contract, obviously, because seller has to take the goods. Buyer has no obligation. Buyer has nothing to think about. He says, you bring in train, plane, car, I don't care. आप कैसे लाते हो आपकी मर्जी. You bring it. When you bring it, I will take it. But remember, still, export clearance is only your obligation. Import clearance, if it is international, it will be of the buyer. So, though you have to do everything, though your cost is everything, but the responsibility and the cost related to import clearance, import duty is of the buyer and buyer alone. All right. Delivered at place unloaded. अरे अभी घर पे जाके डिलीवरी भी कर रहे हैं. Now we are doing unloading also. So very simple. DAP plus unloading. Now it is not just taking the container, bringing the truck there. Even from the truck, I will unload it and keep it on that premise number, warehouse number 17. So it is not just delivering it, delivering in unloaded. So the seller, the obligation will complete only when I unload. Anything going wrong, think about it. In Saudi, where the unloading is happening, there was a forklift, and when the forklift was being loaded, by mistake, it went into my carton and the goods were damaged. And the goods were damaged. Whose risk? Acha, Ajish knows this. Now he's well versed with my way how I teach. So before even I said whose risk, he had an answer. Yes, thank you, Mr. Rajesh. All of you, great, seller. So you understand, it doesn't matter where it happens. It happens before the delivery. Risk is of the seller. और जो बोलते हैं ना last, अरे यार, I was first in the race till the last 1 minute, and 1 minute में कोई आके मेरे को रेस में हरा गया. It doesn't matter. You are now last. You are second. It is just fraction of second which makes the difference. So your delivery is until I leave it or until I put it on the ground. By the way, in this case, who will bear the who will bear the cost of export clearance? Sachin Patel ji, yes. Who will bear the export clearance? Seller. Who will bear import clearance? Import clearance will be of the buyer, please. So Sachin ji, import clearance, import duties, import taxes will still be of the buyer. So that's why it is still, I would say, second last and not the last one. Okay. So import duties, import clearance still is of the buyer, and hence it is DPU is second last and not the last one, because the most expensive cost wise and maximum obligation to the seller is given by DDP, delivered duty paid. If I had to give you a view of what is DDP, I would have simply said replicate and rotate X works. Replicate and rotate X works. ये X works का reverse है. So we are going to quickly see all of those 11 in all 10 sub rules for DDP just to get a glimpse of everything again. General obligation, you still have to give goods and commercial invoice or any other document as per the contract. Buyer's obligation to pay the price. Delivery is one step back than DPU. It is when it is arriving at the means of transport ready for unloading. Unloading nahi karna hai. So unloading, if you remember, in any of the case, unloading is always in only one case where the U word is there, which is DPU. So actually it is one step back, meaning delivery is on the vehicle at the place of destination, at my buyer's warehouse, at the buyer's go down. So at the buyer's go down, delivery is happening, unloading is happening. by the buyer. I have to just take the truck. The minute the truck is ready for unloading, delivery is complete. Risk gets transferred from the seller to the buyer when the delivery happens. Until delivery doesn't happen as per A2, not as per you. Until it doesn't happen as per A2, it is undelivered. Risk is of the seller. All risk after delivery is of the buyer. So yes, Mr. Shravanji, DDP, you don't need to unload it. You don't need to unload it. In DDP, the unloading is to be done by the buyer. Carriage, it is up to the seller how he carriages, how he contracts it. Does he have his own carriage? Does he have he has to do it by himself? None of the business. Insurance, no requirement. Of course, it is seller's risk. If something goes wrong, if seller thinks insurance is important, he may do it. If seller thinks it is not important, he may not do it. Transport delivery document, the seller has to provide some document so that he can take the delivery, because otherwise how the driver or the delivery guy will give the delivery. So any document which can allow him to take the delivery is good enough. Buyer will accept the document. And most crucial, and why this is becoming the last on the agenda of the DDP, is this, that the seller will, exporter will provide, or he will do export clearance, transit clearance, and import clearance. The seller will do the export clearance, transit clearance, import clearance. All of these duties, taxes, everything will be paid by the seller. I think we read this somewhere. We read this in XWorks. वो buyer कर रहा था, अभी यहाँ पे seller कर रहा है. For transit, insurance is not mandatory, sir. Insurance is not mandatory. It is up to him. If he finds that insurance is required, he may do it. If he doesn't find, Gauravji, it is very simple. It is your risk. I am, as a buyer, I have not to worry. If you feel it is risky, you insure it. But there is no obligation. You don't have to insure and tell me, oh, listen, I have insured it. And so if there's something wrong, you will have to give me. Nothing of that sort. Because if you don't insure, or even if you insure, if there is something wrong, it is your risk, because delivery is not happened. Until delivery, until the goods reach my warehouse, it is my problem. It is not my problem. Only after it reaches my warehouse, while the time of unloading, I have to take care. At the time of unloading, if something goes wrong, it is my risk, it's my problem. So export import clearance, transit clearance, duty payment is to be done by the seller. So it is always noted, DDP is very expensive. So if I started with 100, DDP quotation should be about, or could be about $600, because I'm adding all costs, all duties, all taxes. Checking, packing, marking, please understand now, unlike what I started in, I have to give it to the delivery. I have to, in XWorks or in any of this, when I deliver it to the transporter or to the carriage, my delivery is complete. If I give 100 cartons, it is fine. Now that will not happen. My delivery is in the buyer's warehouse. So at the buyer's warehouse, I have to make sure the cartons are intact. And at that point, if the delivery is correct, only then it is correct. Otherwise, I've short delivered. So I have to make sure that the goods are quality checked, packed, properly marked, with proper transportation requirements of the packaging until they reach to the buyer's destination. As you can see, all costs, including duties of export, import, and transit, are to the seller's account. Buyer has to pay the cost of goods. If there is some additional cost of unloading, he has to pay that. And any other cost if he is not taken the delivery or is not given the notice for taking the delivery. Finally, he has to give notices from the seller to the buyer. Obviously, we have to mention, I cannot be sending goods and my cargo, my goods reach on a Sunday or let's assume in Africa or in Middle East, it reaches on a Friday, which is a holiday. It will not. So I have to make sure by giving the notices that I am going to deliver the cargo on this date. So obviously my buyer has to arrange for the labor or the manpower to get it delivered, right? Or unload it. So notice is again the same. So A1 to A10 DDP makes it. Effectively, you have a buffet of XWorks to DDP. There are 11 of them please understand all the 11 are, which one is right? Everyone is right. I know a lot of buyers who prefer DDP and they don't mind paying you $700 for it because he says, I don't want to do anything. And you know the costing is come to 500, $200 buffer hai. You don't mind doing DDP. Even you will take insurance, still it is worth it. So a lot of people say, why will somebody go for DDP? No, they go for DDP. Many exporters or many buyers want Forex works. It's completely independent. Yes, you will have to take your risk. You will have to understand where does the risk. Goods chala gaya. What if something goes wrong? He is not taken insurance. You have not taken insurance. There's a credit which is lying as far as payment terms are concerned. Then you will have to make sure your payment terms are accordingly, not as per this. So be very sure of what Incoterms you use and it is going to be fine. You should understand what are your obligations. You should understand what are your do's and don'ts. One last point which I want to add before I end up this is many times you will use an Incoterm, but you will modify the Incoterm to be suitable to your requirement. Example, many of you may do FOB or you do CFR and then do you insurance. Please try and avoid those modification because contract will overrule it. If you are adding an insurance, if you're adding something, please make a term which is readily available. So better go for a CIP or a CIF. So you know what is clear. Don't try to modify or create your Incoterm rule. Otherwise, what will happen is you are neither FOB nor CFR or nor CFR and trying to manipulate something which will be very, very difficult. All right. Once again, do remember all Incoterms mention whatever I've mentioned. Incoterm logo is a copyright product. So please, whenever you're using, make sure you use the word R and take care of the rules of the copyright items on the website. Finally, my thanks to all of you for patiently hearing me. As I promised, there's a link available to you. This is called speakersco.com. Today's date, it is 30/07/20. You can freely download the presentation. A small feedback form will be there. So you will just fill it up, submit it. You will be able to get the presentation downloaded. I'll be happy to take any questions which I have not yet answered. Thank you so very much. Many thanks to Sunanda ma'am for inviting me. And it was really a pleasure to, do this for the chamber. Thank you so very much.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. I am Sumit Govind Sharma, a proud committee member of the Chamber and the CEO of Group MRP India Private Limited. I, on behalf of the Chamber, would like to extend our sincere gratitude and thanks to Mr. Mihir Ajit Shah. Sir, we are grateful for the excellent presentation. It provides us with huge learning. We are confident that your expertise and experience will help all of us. Last but not the least, Madam Sunanda Rajendran, the pillar for both the chambers, for her sincere and dedicated efforts as always. Our next webinar is on the 6th of August 2020 at 3 p.m. Our guest of honor would be the Indian ambassador to Namibia. Here we would learn how to explore business opportunities in Namibia. There would be a few important businessmen from Namibia who will be joining us for this webinar. Once again, we are thankful and grateful for all the support. Signing off, Sumit Govind Sharma. Thank you.